just gonna touch, I wanna finish this. I'm just kind of lagging along. I want to get in the meat. I want to get this in the next few days. I want to just, maybe 2 days. I want to finish, I don't know, I just want to get to some juice. Let's touch base. I keep like just reading it, one page here, one page there. It's taking forever. I gotta like sit and I always just fall asleep or get distracted. Where do we leave off? We have the lady. I don't even know their names. We have the lady. They're in the other, and the boy, the gay boy with a half female eye, with a female twin eye. He's wearing fishnets. No. And he has like a hat, top hat or something. He's my favorite character. He's very funny. He's cute. They're in the other world. What's happened in the other world? It's full of water. And little... It's all water, but it's not too deep. You could walk around in it. And then there's these little mini islands that almost like the size of a... I don't know, enough that's big enough for a doorway. Then you go, then it's a set of stairs that lead down into these little bunkers all over the place. There's just tons of them. It feels like it almost looks like a set. But it has the day and night is opposite of the real world. They found a school bus full of children stuck in the seat, clawing their way through the seat with a weird, ghostly bus driver. The people trying to get out of the bus. There was a gondola man rowing a boat. It's sort of bizarre so far, to be honest. I don't know if any of it's scary. It's just we're halfway through. I thought this was supposed to be a hauntingly horrifying book. It's sort of just strange, mostly. So, but that's why I'm excited. I want to get through this. I want to see that. I want to get some spooks. It's mostly just strange. There's a gondola man, a little boat rowing by, but they didn't want to say anything because they didn't know if he was a bad man or was he gonna go, oh hi. It's just, they didn't know what kind of person he would be. Would he welcome them or would he attack them, So they let him row by. There's these trees, there's willow trees everywhere. And this interesting thing. There's willow trees. The willows were full of irregular shapes, their branches braiding and unbraiding, gaps forming and vanishing as they moved. But in the gaps, in the spaces made between them, I could see more. There's a concept in graphic design called negative space. It's all the spaces where you haven't put something. If you draw a figure 8, for example, the negative space would be the 2 holes in the space around the outside of the lines. A good designer can use that to advantage. If you ever looked at the FedEx logo, the negative space between the E and the X forms an arrow pointing forward. It isn't always your friend. I wanted to design where the negative space, well, let's just say it had a certain male anatomical quality to it. Sometimes when you stare at something for too long, you miss the really obvious. Whatever was in the willows, it was made of the negative space between the branches. I don't know if I can explain it better than that. As the branches moved and swayed and the leaves shifted, they made shapes in all the places that they weren't. Those shapes were full of bodies, not human bodies, not even physical bodies, I understood, but something there, nonetheless. Silver light, though here and there I caught glimpses of bronze patterns of light and shadow moving up through the willow branches. They rose up from the sand and slithered through the willows, huge and inhuman, shifting like smoke. This is like, I was trying to imagine this. Sounds very weird. I was just imagining something ethereal, like in Annihilation. Just how everything's all sort of like weird and prismy. That's the only thing I can imagine. Sounds weird. The body, because this is it's very hard for me to imagine. It's strange. Try to focus on one, hoping it would resolve into just an optical illusion, just the play of wind and leaves, like clouds. I thought, like shapes in clouds. That's all it is. The body I focused on was faceless, its neck stretched out, twisting like willow stems, and I could not tell if it had 2 legs or 10 or 100. It's like, how are you supposed to imagine this? If its arms were really arms, or if they were tree roots. I just kind of imagine, but I don't even really know if I don't even really know if what I'm imagining is right. Just 2 or 10 or 100. It was shaped like human bodies, but not human bodies. I don't know. Not human bodies. Oh, there's something there, but nothing there. It was really bronzy. Like clouds. When I reached the willow, it rose up. I do like this part. When it reached top of the willows, it rose up a drift of amber light, joining dozens, hundreds of other shapes rising from other willows. They twisted, hardly visible, above the bushes. Then they vanished. One I could have explained away. Dozens were harder. The colors were not quite right, and they were too clearly bodies, but even if they weren't bodies of anything that I understood. Are these them? Should I be frightened? The figures did not seem to notice we were watching. If they could hear us thinking, they didn't care. Oh, they have written on the walls that they can hear what you're thinking. And then hope that they're hungry. If they knew, figures don't seem to notice we're watching. If they did hear us, we were thinking, they didn't care. If they were just there, twisting, streaming upwards, a vision I didn't understand. That can't be real. I whispered to Simon. It's an illusion, just the light. Black mold, he said. They think they're hallucinating, like they inhaled too much black mold. Is it not as he believed it? I was not as frightened as I thought I should have been. The things rising up and the willows not seem to have anything to do with us. There's nothing human about them. Nothing I could get a grip on to fear. And then there's this. That's cool. They look like the dreams of trees, cast in bronze. What I felt was more like wonder than terror. It was hypnotic to watch them, just staring into a fire as it burned. Simon and I must have lain across the steps watching for an hour at least, long enough for me to start shivering, for the concrete to leave flat red marks on my elbows and knees, and dawn light grew no brighter, but stayed a sullen gray mark on the edge of the world. Then they vanished. We both jerked upright, as if we had fallen asleep. Something went through the willows, not a ghost this time, not a shape made of the wind and the leaves. This was solid and dark, and we saw the branches bow down as it passed. I like that. This is the coolest thing so far. It's one of the only things so far, really. It was solid and dark, and we saw the branches bow down as it passed. The wonder snapped like a bone breaking, and horror rushed in. Whatever was moving was dark and solid, and the willows bent down as if they were worshipping it. We watched it move through the bushes, as if it were going somewhere rapid and businesslike. Then it too was gone. I had no problem believing that the solid thing had been one of them, whatever they were. Every animal instinct screamed at me to get away from it, to run away and curl into the smallest ball I could and pray that it went away. The feeling didn't lessen when it vanished. If anything, it got worse. They were somewhere, and now I couldn't see them, and that meant that they could be anywhere, and they could be moving around behind the world, like the kids on the school bus. They could suddenly come out right on top of us. By mutual unspoken consent, Simon and I backed down the stairs together. The silvery willow light gave him an ashen pallor, but I'm not sure if regular light would have made him look any better. We didn't talk until we retreated to the far room and bolted the door. In these little bunkers, there's like all this military thing. There's like little bunks, there's little beds, there's little toy boxes. What do you call them? Little boxes at the end of the bed. There's MREs to eat. They keep finding everything they need. Like, they were getting tired and they go down there and there's little beds to sleep. Like, they're hungry and there's MREs to eat. They were cold and she found a big sweater to put on. So it's a lucky place, at least. They always have what they need. It's not, they're not, you know. So I go, what is this place? And the thing that I like this part, where they go. Oh, they found a porno magazine, which looks normal. But then there's weird things in it, like everything seems the same, but then there's a thing that says, there's an interview with Miss Brandy listing her likes: long walks on the beach, cuddling, romantic movies. Her dislikes: mean people, traffic jams, people who put their shoes on the bed. It also had her moon house, which was Hebridean, and her blood sign, Leaf. Assuming a moon house was like a horoscope, I could just about see that, but blood sign, what was that? Like blood type? I flipped back to the cover and peered at it. They're fake, said Simon, rummaging in another footlocker. Well, obviously, I'm looking at the stamp. She's covered in postage stamps. Before I saw that it was weird, I looked up what blood sign was. Blood sign, typed in blood sign Lee, and I couldn't. It just showed me how how to do the blood sign. It was like something like that. Wait. Ooh. It was kind of creepy. It's a creepy sign. Right. That's so wrong. Like, whatever makes the gang sign. The gang sign. You're supposed to spell. Something ain't right. You're supposed to spell blood. Watch people do it. It looks creepy. Writing blood with their hand. The gang. It looks evil. Because it looks like hands shouldn't make that shape. I don't understand about blood sign. Other than that. I like this part. Not like we get much wetter. Simon glanced at his rolled up pants and soggy fishnets. His look had gone from safari Mad Hatter to bedraggled drag queen. He was still wearing it better than I did. I like that part. Sounds cute. Oh, it's foggy. Yeah, the flask of coffee and whiskey. They're making the notes that there's more plants than willow cheese. These were things I highlighted. We can reach a bunker from here, I think I said, without too much waiting. When we were wading through water. Are you sure it's a bunker? No, but I don't know what else to call it. I lifted my hands helplessly and let them drop. For all I know, every one of these has a hole that leads to a different planet. God, I hope not, muttered Simon. One's hard enough to deal with. 50 would be entirely too much. We think there's only 50. You think there's more than 50 of these doors? I looked around over the chest-high willow bushes. I have no idea. There's too much fog. They could go on for miles. Or this whole world could be about 100 yards across and walled in by fog. I stared at him and he waved his arms. We don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Why does it have to be the size of our world? For all we know, it's tiny. It's teeny. Then where would the water come from? I asked. Rivers have to have a source. Rivers in our world do. I groaned. I wasn't completely willing to abandon my understanding of geography just yet. I like that though. I really like that. Why this world can be tiny. Maybe it's not big at all. I mean, this is just how big it is. And then water has to come from a source. Who says who? No, it doesn't. That's just the way it is on our world. Why it doesn't? Whatever you think it makes sense doesn't have to make sense here. I like that. Whatever, he was in an abandoned... Simon snorted. Your uncle says nobody's ever want to fight with you. I figured I'd lose. This is when they were trying to get in this place. He's opening the door with a drill, or closing it or something. Hey, he says in a very complimentary fashion. The lock was installed in short order. He swung the door back, nearly closed to check the alignment, then pulled it open again. Shriek, shriek. Alright, if we run into zombies or Godzilla out there, this'll hold them for, I don't know, a good 30 seconds. That's comforting. I'm feeling very comforted right now. That's what I do. On the first step in the water was cold, but not frigid. Not like the warm ocean on the Carolina coast, but not icy mountain stream either. Chilly. The concrete steps were slick with algae, but the next step down into mud, it was, well, mud. My hiking sandals sank in and squelched. Simon removed his boots, tied them around his neck, the laces, and followed. Gah, it's not so bad once you get used to it. Yeah, that's what my first boyfriend said about anal. Simon, what? What? That's what my first boyfriend said about anal. Simon, what? I know if I looked at him, he'd be grinning like a shark, so I kept my eyes on my feet. Truth is, I was glad for the distraction. My sandals had vanished into the mud, trying not to think about Simon's love life. Was better than waiting for something to bite my toes. Otherworldly piranhas or maybe leeches. I didn't see any fish or any bubbles or a sort that made me think even some small creature was lurking in the water was still quiet. They found a Bible. Bible. He held it out to me. I took it and began to flip through the table of contents, trying desperately to remember what books of the Bible I'd learned in Sunday school a million years ago, and whether these were the same ones. Was there always a book of Judith? Can't remember. Didn't she stab that one general? Someone did. Amos, Elijah. I think most of these are the same. Oh, there's a book of sorrows. But I guess that's the same as Lamentations. Oh, a book of Saul. I guess he didn't change his name on the road, said Simon. There's like 5 books of Thessalonians. I guess they kept up with letters better in that world. I have the small Bible in my hands, wondering how much of a stir I could make with it back home. Probably nothing. Nobody's gonna believe where you got it. They'll assume you made a weird forgery for your own amusement. Or worse, some people will believe you and you'll wind up forming a cult or something. She's like, I don't have time to start a cult. I don't have time for that. Anyway, so that's it so far. I just wanted to refresh myself, see what I like. Like, I like the willows bowing down to the dark figure. It sounds very spooky and kind of pretty at the same time. Excited to see what that is, what that's about. Sounds like my first... Simon. Sounds like my first boyfriend. Simon. What? 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 Oh, they're drinking the water. They need water. Salud. He said, and we drank from our cupped hands. Tasted vaguely of algae. As I drank it, my thirst came roaring back. Well, if it was gonna get Giardia, or liver snails, the first sip was probably as fatal as the last. I drank until I wasn't thirsty anymore, while the killdeer sobbed in the distance. "Do you hear that?" asked Simon abruptly, cocking his head. "Hear what?" I listened. I could hear the lap of water against the tiny island. The wind had died down, so the willows were not making their awful rustling chatter for once. "I don't hear," and then I stopped, because I did hear something. Or I had been hearing something, and now I wasn't. It was distant, almost electronic noise, like a hum. I pulled out my phone, but it was silent and nearly out of battery, and in any event, I heard something. We listened, heads cocked. I had nearly given up when I heard it again. It sounded almost like a gong, only without the percussion of its being struck, just the humming aftermath, as the note died away like a finger dragged over a wine glass, perhaps, but a fraction deeper. I couldn't even begin to figure out where it was coming from. Is it the wind? I asked. Maybe blowing through something? There's less wind than there was. I think it would have been louder last night if it was blowing. He frowned. Sounds almost like one of those Tibetan singing bowl things. You run the little copper stick around and it makes a noise. I nodded. The Wonder Museum had one, of course. Where's it coming from? I turned my head to try to orient on the sound. I'm not sure. All told, we must have stood there 10 minutes or more listening and turning in place, and at the end we were no closer to figuring it out than we had been. The sound was coming from overhead or underground or far away or inside our heads. I had an urge to dig down and see what the bug at the bottom looked like, which I scrolled ruthlessly. All I needed now is for the insects to go all. I want to see some bug. They see ant lion. I still had this awful nagging feeling that the skin of this world was terribly thin, and if I tried to dig down, I'd punch a hole in it and end up on the other side. looking up at the willows from behind. Maybe on that side, the spirits would no longer be confined to negative space. Maybe they would be real and present and fall upon me hungrily. But I kept thinking that's what happened to the kids in the school bus. They'd fallen through to the other side of the world. And were now pressed up against it, trying to push their way back in. That's scary. The humming gong sound came again, closer at least. It seemed closer. Actually, it seemed as if I was hearing it inside my chest. Oh, I made a video where I'm pounding on my chest. I'm like, wow, it sounds solid. And I listened back to the video, and it just, you don't hear, it doesn't sound the way I was hearing it. It sounded different because I'm living inside my body. It just sounded like nothing. It just sounded somebody slapping somebody's skin. But when I'm pounding my chest inside my head, it sounded cool. It sounded epic and strong and powerful. It didn't sound like that in the video. You won't know the sound I heard. I guess just go like this to yourself. They're going in one of the bunkers. A different one. They lost track of the one they came out of because they all look the same. So they're just going and checking all of them. They're going in one. The back wall had an alcove in it, made of 2 concrete pillars rising out of water. Wrapped around one of them, emaciated but clearly alive, was a person. We watched the figure turn their head and looked at us. Eyes shone in an angular, sunken face. They stood waist deep and had long hair that fell clear to the water. When they moved, I could see the hollowed outline of their ribs. Their arms were wrapped around the pillar, holding it tightly. The arms were so thin that they looked like vines or tree roots. Slowly, the person released the pillar. I saw their throat working and finally said in a wet, raspy voice, "Please, the light hurts my eyes." Simon and I scrambled backward. Simon's hand was shaking so badly on the flashlight the person seemed to move as if they were in a strobe light. Ew, that's scary. Ew, my face is scary. The person seemed to move as if they were on a strobe light. That's creepy. That's good. It's like that YouTube video is popular. That lady walking towards the camera. It's like she glitches in. She's glitching in and out. Ew. That's spooky. It seemed like they were in a strobe light. "The light, please. The light, please," they said again. The words finally penetrated. Simon dropped a circle of light to the water. The surface was black and oily looking. The skeletal figure was still visible at the edge of the beam. "Move back a few steps, please." "Move back a few steps, please." It was a southern accent. That was what killed me. This nightmarishly thin figure was in the middle of another god damned dimension, and they had drawn like any of the good old boys down at the hardware store. Not the genteel Gone with the Wind kind, with the eyes drawn out until they had an extra vowel in them and the R's softened down almost to non-existence, but the kind that drinks out of a mason jar and would know a mint julep from a hole in the ground. Okay, let's go back. Move back, move back a few steps, please. Move back a few steps, please. Move back a few steps. So, not this. Move back a few steps, please. It's like this. Move back a few steps, please. Yes, they said I probably. Yes, yeah, yes. They said I probably can't reach you there. What the hell does that mean? I probably can't reach you there. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. Move back. I probably can't reach you over there. What the hell does that mean? I didn't want to know. I backed up another step. Then they laughed at, or something like a laugh, the sound like a swallowing click. Oh God. Oh God, whispered Simon. Oh fucking God. The laughing person stood, slumped in the water, hair hanging down like a shawl. Tips of their fingers were black and violet. "No," they said. Not God. Not God. Ew. They coughed and their voice became a bit stronger. "Not God. Sturdivant Martin. Sturdivant. Not God. Sturdivant Martin." They lifted their head just a little, hair clinging to their skin like algae. "Are you real?" God help me. I almost said no. Simon was made of stronger stuff, or maybe he'd done enough drugs that he was better at dealing with impossible visions. Are you? Are you? He said. I am. I was a park ranger. They laughed again, but cut off quickly. I was a park ranger. Not anymore, obviously. This isn't Narnia, I thought. This is Middle-earth, and we just found Gollum. I swallowed, surrounded by water, and my mouth was dry as the surface of the moon. Are you okay? Which was a stupid question, because no one who looked like that was anything like okay. I tried again. What happened? Sturtevant trailed his blackened... Sturtevant, I guess that's his name. Sturtevant trailed his blackened fingertips over the surface of the water. This place happened. They happened. Part of me, the kind and decent part, the Uncle Earl part, was saying that we should put the poor man out of the water. Should pull the poor man out of the water. Put a sweater on him, get some food in him. He was obviously sick and starving and near death. The other part, it's a lot like my mother was saying that if Sturtevant took another step toward me, I should grab Simon and run like a rabbit. Are you from here? I asked instead. Yes, no. No one is from here. Everyone comes through. And most of us die. I wish we had. Did you find a hole in this place then? Asked Simon, steadying the light with his other hand. Sturtevant kept brushing the water with his finger. Brushing the water with his fingertips as if stroking it. A hole, kudzu. A hole, kudzu. Do you have that where you come from? We both nodded. Did you come through it? No. No, said Simon. We glanced at each other. There was a hole in the wall inside the bunker, inside the Glory to God Museum. There's a hole. Inside, breathed Sturtevant. Lucky, very lucky. Inside is safer. I was not so lucky. I came through the kudzu. It was all through the park. I had grown over trees by the water, real tall cathedrals. We called them cathedrals. Simon, I tried to flinch backwards simultaneously and ended up sitting down hard on the steps behind us. Sorry, I forgot. It's been so long. He shook his head. His hair was so long and wet and clinging that it seemed to limit the distance he could turn his head. He coughed again. The kudzu. I went into the kudzu cathedral. It's a basket underneath. It's like a basket underneath. I heard something. I went towards it, and then it got darker and darker, and I tried to turn around, but I came out here in the willows. And you couldn't get back? I asked. No, I could never find it again. I was lost, or it had closed already. I spent days in the willows looking. I hate those things, I said. Yes, you should. He kneaded the water as if it were dough. Yes, the willows are the soul of this place. So the holes are everywhere? Asked Simon. Not just the bunkers? Everywhere. Anywhere. You come through where you come through. Have you heard the sound yet? Simon and I looked at each other, then back. There was a hum, said Simon cautiously, like a gong a long way away. We weren't sure if it was real. Yes, it was real. Sturgeon sank an inch or two down the water. Yes, that's their sound. After a moment, he added, "You'll hear it again." "Whose sound?" I asked. "Them, the ones here. You have seen their mark already." Simon and I looked at each other again, trudging helplessly. Perhaps not. Perhaps I'm remembering wrong. Perhaps not. Perhaps I'm remembering wrong. Sturgeon sank even deeper in the water, still stroking the surface with his fingers. It's been so long. How long have you been here? Since... Oh, wait. It's been so long. How long have you been here? Since yesterday, said Simon. Not long then, no. Not yet. Was it just the water that he was touching? No, there was something else in there. Something he was running through his fingers over and over. Couldn't make it out, except it was long and dark. Water, weed, or, oh Lord, maybe his own hair in the water. How long was it? Some holes last longer. I think yours may be still or not. It hadn't even occurred to me to imagine the way home was closed. Did you see? Did you see a school bus? No. Simon tried to describe it the way the children were trapped inside. It was hard to wrap words around it. It was doubly hard when we were talking to a wet skeletal man lurking in the dark water, stroking his floating hair. Not that he seems hostile exactly, but what did he mean by "I probably can't reach you there"? She just offers him food. Because I've been starving this long. If I eat now, I'd have to start over. That made more sense than I wanted it to make. I didn't want to think about it. There's so many things now that I didn't want to think about. What are they? I asked. He shook his head. This place, they live here. Don't think too loudly. If you think about them, it draws them in. Where is this place? I said. What is it? Sturgeon's bony shoulders rose out of the water in a shrug. A place, just a place, old, touched in many places. But eventually the willows found it and got their roots in. They live in the willows, from them, of them. We saw spirits, I said, in the willows last night, and something bigger. Yes. He lifted one hand, hair, water, weeds stuck to it. made a vague gesture, then dropped it back to the water. The white light of the willows brings things alive. Then not alive, you understand? We didn't. Sturdivant shook his head in wet, sticky hair, wrapping around his cheekbones. Things come alive in the willow's light. Not them, just things. Then the light goes and they're not alive anymore. But the willow served them. Never doubt it. Is the boatman one of them? Asked Simon. That was a good question, and one I hadn't thought to ask. Oh, him. Sturdivant shrugged again. Don't let him catch you, or do let him, maybe. He's always hungry. He opened his eyes. You asked what they do if they aren't hungry, he smiled, baring teeth and black swollen gums. I had to look away. Then they play with you and take you apart to see what makes you tick. Change you. My skin was already crawling, but it crawled harder, as if I wanted to leave my body completely and go try and find a way home as if I wanted to leave my body completely and go try to find the way home by itself. There was a woman, Sturdivant abruptly. I met her. She came through before a different way. She'd been here for days, a researcher. He tried to shake his head again, but the thick weight of his wet hair prevented him. They got her a few days later, but they weren't hungry. They came for us and we ran. When I found her again, she was all twisted up, and they'd stacked her bones up next to her, all very neat, from small to large. All the little hand bones lined up like beads. The water shivered around him. She was alive. It took ages to kill her. She was like jelly. What? My mind had gone completely blank. It felt like the black water at our feet, each awful word falling into it and leaving ripples. They don't come down here, Sturdivant said wearily. Too much concrete. The willows can't get their roots in. He laughed softly, though. Though that's changing. Water and muck and dead leaves turns to dirt in the dark, and then they start sending their roots down. He sunk so deep into the water now that it lapped against his chin when he spoke. I was sweating despite the cold. I wiped back with my neck and I felt as clammy as a mushroom. We're safe in the bunkers? Safe? Said Sturdivant. Body shook with laughter. Safe? None of us are safe. They touched me and I fell down. Here. It stopped. Them changing me more. None of us are safe. They touched me and I fell down here. It stopped them from changing me more. For all the good it did me. I'm sorry, I said helplessly. Can we do anything? Safe, said Sturdivant, and then he stood up in the water. It wasn't hair. Martin Sturdivant's skin stopped at the bottom of his ribs. His lower half had been taken apart. His guts were black with algae and dirt and hung loose in the water, some of them floating so that he was moving through a cloud of his own organs. And I realized that when he had been stroking the surface of the water, he had been stroking his own body, dissected around him, fingers moving across intestines and bowels in a horrible, loving touch. Simon and I had let out a twin screams and fled.